this is Dr. Corey here. Welcome back to the PT Powerhouse. We are going to pick up exactly where we left off from the last episode. So if you have not listened to the previous episode on GeneSIS culture, I highly recommend you go back and do that first, because we're basically going to dive into the roles that were kind of the product of a lot of those choices and beliefs that lead to the overall culture. So it'll make a lot more sense if you do that first. We're so excited to have you back here. We think this is a great episode, great information. We had a lot of fun making it. Too much fun, which is why it ended up having to be 2 parts. So glad you're here, and here we go.
So I feel like we talked a lot about like what sets us apart, culture-wise, and like what makes us GeneSIS happens to be through how we hire people and then how we treat them when they're here. So I think let's talk about kind of various roles, because we get asked that a lot of like, well, how do you do it all? And I'm like, I literally don't.
Yeah.
And then people ask me a lot in coaching, how do I create a director or a lead PT or like, what does a director do? So I think people would like to hear kind of like, what are the roles that we have at play here? We have like 500 different admin support roles, like different levels in like the therapist realm here. So yeah, we can talk about roles.
Who do you want to start with?
Let's start with the admins, because they're their own like breed over there.
Yeah.
Just killing the game.
Yeah.
So we have a full-time, what I call like patient-facing office admin. So she handles most of the clinics. So what we call her like the Dallas side office admin, and she's full-time, salaried, 40 hours a week, all the things. And then we have a part-time like patient-facing admin who handles just the Fort Worth clinic. And they both, while their sole responsibility is like talk to patient inquiries, get them booked, get patients rescheduled who are sick or like whatever, they also come in sometimes and they'll help with like tasks around the clinic, or like if we're having events, they'll be there and they'll like help as needed and if they're able. And that's kind of like the patient facing admin role.
Yeah.
And then we have our plan of care coordinator.
Thank God.
Thank the Lord. Because in Texas, which is different across states, but in Texas, we do have direct access, meaning they can come in without a referral. However, if they do that, we have to have something signed, whether it's a referral or a plan of care. We have to have something signed within 14 days.
Yes.
10 business days, 14 days, 2 weeks, whatever you want to call it. So we literally created a role called the plan of care coordinator, because we used to do this ourselves.
It was
back
terrible.
in the day of just you and me. And we forged this role, and her sole job is to go in every single day and download the evaluations that happened yesterday, fax them to their medical providers, and then track them down for the next 2 weeks to get the signature back to make sure we can continue providing PT and OT.
Yeah.
And that's her
legally.
That's her literal
kind
job.
Important.
And then she'll upload their signature to their chart. So like she just works virtually. She just kind of does it. She also is so that's like her job description. She also happens to have more skills than that. So she'll help with other like one-off things, like help with website stuff and like sending out emails or making landing pages kind of as needed. But her main job is plan of care coordinator. She gets those suckers signed and returned in a timely fashion. She'll track them down. She'll call those doctors' offices.
Which is why she's so crucial, because sometimes they like won't answer and we can't see the patient for their follow-ups unless we get that signature. So she's like hugely, hugely important for the business.
Very, very. So love her. And then we have our culture coordinator, which is like a new role that we're kind of like building as we go. We've had it, but we're like improving it this year to really be like, okay, instead of just being like, oh, we have a culture coordinator, like plan this party. Our like long-term vision is it's someone who gets to know the team and the culture, and they remember things like admin day is coming up, for instance. And she messaged me the other day and she was like, oh, I was thinking of getting everyone this for admin day and sending it to the admins. And I was like, incred. Yes.
Love that.
So stuff like that, but also the bigger things, planning our quarterly events and planning like our Christmas party and just planning our quarterly birthday dinners and just kind of taking care of like planning the things that are fun, the fun planner maker, But knowing, kind of interweaving the GeneSIS culture into everything.
Yes.
So she knows like she's not going to be planning dry, boring events for
Yes.
us. Like they're going to be extra.
Yeah.
And they're going to be bougie and they're going to be fun.
Yeah.
Because that's us.
And they're organized and planned well enough that people can actually come.
Yes.
And know about them. Because if you just kind of try to throw them together with a team the size we have now, spread across the Metroplex, it doesn't work.
No.
And
so that's one. She's onboarded. She's currently working, but she knows like as she got hired earlier this year that like we're gonna figure this role out together, which is honestly how we thought of our roles here at GeneSIS. But yeah, and so she's totally down.
Yeah.
So that's culture coordinator. So that's 4 technical like hired administrator support roles in GeneSIS. However, we also have a virtual assistant.
Yes.
She's technically not an employee. We pay her for her services essentially, but she's crucial.
Yes.
So I count her in my head. I'm like, she is one of our admins. She's number 5. And last is not least. But yeah, she builds out courses. She builds out websites. She keeps us on track on email marketing and lists. She is like, she'll make social media content if we need her to. I tend to do a lot of it because I like to, but she can. If I needed her to, if I was in a pinch, I'd be like, girl, can you make this? Yes. She like is so savvy. She'll send me things that she notices to like better the business. Like, hey girl, you can now put 5 links in your Instagram bio. Didn't know if you saw that.
Yeah.
I'm just like, I like hadn't seen that. Thank you. So just things like that where she's like she's genuinely invested in GeneSIS. Yeah. She loves us, and she does a lot for Powerhouse as well. She's on it. Like both businesses pay her for her services. But yeah, she wants to see us win. Like she has it.
Yeah.
She's not even hired on, but like we're not going to take her if she didn't have it, No. So those are like our admin supporting roles that we would crumble without them.
Literally, yes. Because that's too much to do for any one person, which is why it's so many, and then also treat patients.
Literally. It's too much. No. So when we're telling you guys, when you're trying to grow your businesses, like most likely step 1 is hire an admin person.
Yeah.
And, like I help a lot of people figure out, well, how long do I need them for? And like, what do they do? And blah, blah, blah. And like, if it's just you who's wanting to hire another therapist, like you do need an admin for sure. Probably first, or at least at the like minimum at the same time. Yeah. And it's just, so when we say like, you need that. We have 5 of them. You need that.
I also feel like just on trend of GeneSIS growing, every time we've hired an admin, it's been because GeneSIS is growing, and then it also continues to grow. Yes. Because also, if you don't have enough help, things start to fall through the cracks, and then your employees get burnt out at their actual jobs. Yeah. And then patients notice, like, hey, like no one called me back when they said they were going to, or like all of those sorts of things.
Well, and let's talk about this too for a second, because a lot of people, a problem that I hear is like, well, like I don't want to pay someone that's not like quote revenue generating, or because they're technically not. You're paying them for their services. Yeah, they're not seeing patients and bringing in money technically directly, I guess is a better term. And like that's a hurdle, a mindset shift I have to get through to people is like, but you literally cannot do all of that. Like, if we're growing your business, which is who my coaching clientele is, I'm not helping people start businesses. I'm helping people grow businesses and create teams and their best lives. If we're doing that, you have to have support staff. Yeah. Because you cannot do it all. Like you literally cannot do it all. And so that comes back to the scarcity mindset of like, oh, I'm going to be paying this person, and that's a chunk of like the money, and oh my gosh, they're not bringing in revenue. But it's the literal opposite. It's like, wow, how much more you can do now that you actually have delegated these tasks to this person who knows how to do them, is good at them, and wants to do them. You don't want to be on the phone with those patients trying to get in the book.
Well, it's also like when you and I were spending time on the phone calling patients, that still wasn't making any money.
No.
So now you're money. So now you're the person with the potential to make the business money who isn't actually making the business money. Yeah. So to your point, it's like they're not making money, but neither are you while you're doing their job.
Or you're doing it in the evenings and weekends, trying to still see all the patients and then do admin stuff around it. And I'm like, that's not sustainable.
No.
You're going to burn out.
Also, like, I can't tell you how Julie, our Fort Worth admin, all the time is like, it just never ceases to amaze me how appreciative people are that I call and text them back, like, promptly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like within the day.
Yes.
That they contact us. Yeah. And like, I'm like, yeah, I like know. And it just feels like that should be the norm. But when it's not, when someone wants your services and then you don't respond, they go somewhere else. So they're just beyond crucial.
Literally beyond. Like, love you if you're listening, admins. Mom,
don't ever leave.
I know you are, Mom. She's one of our admins. Love you, Mom.
She's gonna be like, don't talk about me.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Angela.
Oh my gosh.
So that's our admins and support staff. So I don't know, do you want to talk about like kind of like the staff PTs and like directory things, and then we can kind of talk about like me and you last, maybe?
Sure. Yeah. It's funny because I have been all of these roles.
I know. That's why I'm like, you're perfect.
So when I started as a staff PT, I really never was, actually. No. That's probably the one role I've never had because it was just you and me doing all the things. I mean, it's fine. It's all worked out. I'm not mad about it. But as staff PT, I would say, you know, they are seeing the most significant patient caseload. They're expected to have a certain amount of available hours to see patients. Really, the number one rule is everybody has to eat lunch. So we don't let our staff skip lunch day in and day out because they try to do that. A, because they love their patients. B, because you can make more money. But it's unsustainable. And so you see as many patients as you can in those hours, and then you have to eat lunch, get all your documentation in, communicate any problems to your management, help with marketing. So I'm sure anyone who's familiar with GeneSIS knows everyone does a little bit of social media. Everybody does a little bit of community marketing. We kind of let people lean into their strengths. So if you're better at one than the other, that's fine. Yeah. You're just like part of the team. Yeah. And they just, all of our therapists will open and close the clinic. Like, they're very self-sufficient and autonomous.
Because they make their own schedules. Yes. So sometimes they're like, I want to come in at 7 a.m. And Corey's like, I'm not trying to like be there at 7 a.m. No. So like they're able to get in, open it, do all the things.
They do their own thing. They can flex a day if they need to, come in on a Saturday, longer, shorter hours, like whatever. Yeah. They just, our biggest thing is like over communicate and everything will be fine. Yeah. Because it's just our job to make things run smoothly. Yeah. And then we kind of have a lead PT position role that like exists at different times at different places. Yeah. Where they're helping with, they're doing all those same things. Then they're also helping to like order materials. So like TheraBand, gloves, lubes, that sort of thing. They're doing a little more marketing and a little more problem solving. Wouldn't you say? Yeah. Anything else?
I would say something that'll help people understand this role is what they don't do. And that is they don't manage people. So like they are not expected to manage, like they're not necessarily over the staff PTs. Yes. Like they have an extra duty.
They're helping the director.
Correct. Yeah. More. They're like, they're like an assistant regional manager, assistant to the regional manager. No, I was kidding. Okay. The office. It's fine. They're like looking at the supply closet. They're like, oh, we're getting low on this. I'm going to put this on the spreadsheet. Like, that would be like a lead PT in a nutshell, which again, to your point, we've kind of had them, we've kind of used it as like a transition role into director. But we were just talking about earlier, literally in our meeting before recording this, how we're kind of growing the hierarchy at GeneSIS this year and next year and beyond. And like that is going to become a more prominent role sooner rather than later.
There's more to do at every location.
Yes. Yes.
Which is good. Yeah. But hard on the directors when they're trying to do all of the things.
Which to that point, I love that you said that. Like, we're not trying to burn out our directors, which we're going to talk about what they do in a second. But burnout is real when you're a leader. And like directors, they're held to a higher standard. They do more things. So that's where we're kind of like, okay, we're probably as we grow going to need this like more of these lead PTs supporting roles for them, for this director up here. Y'all can't see me, but this director up here I'm doing with my hands hierarchy to allow this director to do their main bigger jobs rather than just like, oh, we're out of TheraBand, let me order that.
Yes.
Like, they have bigger fish to fry. And so it's like, that's part of our culture, is like, we see that happening. Not that we see people burning out, we see the potential of it, I guess is a better way to phrase it. And so we're like, okay, we're going to kind of change up the structure here, and we're going to support this director role by doing this.
Yeah, one of our directors, every time I meet with her, I ask her, like, do you feel like what you're doing right now is sustainable? And sometimes the answer is yes. And I'm like, that's great. Let us know how we can continue to support you. And sometimes the answer is no. And I'm like, that information is also great.
Yeah, I need to know that.
What can we do? Yeah, as soon as possible, practically. And sometimes things are just seasons. Yeah. Sometimes they're like, oh, it's kind of personal. And I'm like, that's okay. Yeah. We still want to support you. But also sometimes it's like, I just can't keep worrying about the TheraBand and solving these like emergencies that have been coming up lately, and working on this bigger project with a due date. And I'm like, someone else can order TheraBands. Like that is those
someone else can order TheraBands.
That will be the straw that breaks the camel's back. Is like dealing with a whole fiasco. Which really, if we're talking about the directors, like, you are the problem solver. You are focused on your people, making sure your job is to make sure that your clinic is thriving.
Yeah. You run that clinic. That's your clinic.
Yeah. Like, whether it's like a weather emergency, marketing, networking, we do quarterly events at each like major clinic. Those sort of things are all under the director's purview. And then meeting with everyone on staff, that's kind of under their leadership. And then also helping with like bigger GeneSIS projects. They're really like sandwiched.
They are sandwiched.
They're in the GeneSIS sandwich.
And what I like about it though is like, we can ask them, what are your professional goals? What, like, and we can kind of tailor it to like, okay, what do we delegate to these people? Because they're good at that. They want to do that type of thing.
They enjoy this. They hate that. Like those sort of things.
Yeah. But at their core, they are in charge of their clinic. They are making sure the clinic runs smoothly. They might have to talk to landlords that maybe, like, if we're subleasing inside or leasing inside a building, like they are the talker to of the landlord. It doesn't come to us. And they're making sure, like, on a
just day-to-day
level, their staff is taken care of. Like they might order copies one morning. Like
they plan the case connects. Like if someone calls in sick, we help reschedule the patients. Like all
they support the staff in what the staff is doing to market. So like if they like they might help a staff PT plan a marketing event or a community event. Like they might oversee it and ask this staff PT to go to it or whatever. So they run that clinic.
They do all the things, which is it's a lot of work.
Which is why they might need people to order TheraBands for them. Yes.
You just don't need to be worried about because it does matter. Because then if your staff PT shows up and is trying to give their therapist their patient exercises and they don't have the materials they need, that's a problem.
Absolutely.
So
did you already say that directors also talk to angry patients?
No, I didn't. We have cracked down on actually enforcing our cancellation policy, which we should do an episode on that.
Done.
That's a whole nother episode of its own. Because frankly, in short, our cancellation policy supports a lot of things at GeneSIS and the way we feel about a lot of things. So we have gotten more firm with it recently. We still have tons of exceptions. Basically, the only people we have had get upset about it recently forgot. Which is not an exception.
No.
To not show up for your appointment. Totally fine.
Unless you forgot because you're in labor. Like
I forgot.
But then it's like you're in labor. It's not that you forgot.
We waive it if there's a legitimate reason you could not come or couldn't tell us that you couldn't come. And then we had someone else get angry because she just felt like it wasn't fair. And again, you're welcome to that opinion. You still signed for it.
Yes.
So that is something that, like, obviously we will have people kind of asked to talk to the manager, and that is us. And we get to have those conversations. The director does, where it's like, I hear you. I am exploring the whole situation. This is what I'm hearing, and you're gonna go ahead and apply this fee as agreed to, and people are not happy about it.
And that brings me to an interesting point, is like the role of director is kind of like where we start investing in them as leaders also.
Yeah.
So like the lead PT, because they're not necessarily dealing with people and fires and like
not firing people, but like
emergencies, emergency fire, like
putting out fires.
Yes, sorry, but also
we've never fired anybody.
No. But it's like the director level is kind of where we start to make investment both in our time and with our money through GeneSIS to invest in them as leaders.
To have those skills.
To have the skills, because it's like if you just tell someone they're a director and you're just like, all right, go manage your people. And they're just like,
call me if you need anything. Then they call you all the time.
Literally. And you're like, this is not the point. I didn't want you to call me all the time. But I mean, not that we don't want calls, but anyway, whatever.
You're hiring them to grow into that role.
Correct. Yes. And so that's a whole other, probably a whole other episode, is like how we invest in the leadership team.
Yeah.
And then we invest in the staff in other ways, like in their Con Ed and like their time, all the things. But
that's
anyway, director is like where we start to help them grow leadership wise.
Yeah.
So that's director.
Yes. And then now there's a senior director.
Yes.
Which is me.
Which Corey forged the way there again.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, so it's time to make another role for you. Another promotion.
Which is great. Yeah, because basically there's just more and more GeneSIS happening, and Becky was doing more and more. And really, since day one, I think I've been a little bit of a sounding board, and so a lot of a sounding board. And so there was just more bigger projects that involved all the locations. I mean, this year I've been kind of heading up. Well, we officially are opening one more clinic.
Whoop.
Which I was just thinking about that, like, that's the first clinic you have, like, not done a thing. Like,
hands
it's
off,
just
baby.
Open.
It's
like, just opening.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's kind of
so
nice.
The growth is quicker the more we share the load. So, I meet with all of the leaders, basically, on a more regular basis, and then Becky regularly, and then just do all of the things. And since there is such an investment in leadership, too, it's just helping them lead.
Yeah. Absolutely. And that's kind of like where we are right now. I feel like I think of you as like the director's director, like which that is what it is, a senior director. But it's like you help them grow as leaders. You are boots on the ground with them. Like you're regularly investing with them as people, as professionals, as leaders, all that, which trickles down to the staff. And like, I know we're speaking of it right now, we only have you, senior, and then one director, Amelia, but like as we grow, that will be more. So like senior director is over all the directors. Like
they're leading leaders.
Yes. And that's kind of where we are right now. As we grow, we probably will have roles such as like regional director, which is probably in between. Like that's in between. That's like a director that has multiple clinics, but those clinics have a director.
Yeah.
But they're not the senior. They're not overall the directors. Yeah. So I feel like there's always going to be just one senior director. Like you are in charge of the directors. The senior is. And then like there's regional ones because let's be honest, we're not going to like stop growing most likely.
Definitely not.
So like GeneSIS will start to become like regions, which the regions are going to need someone to like head them up. But still each clinic is going to need its head. So like that's kind of what we were talking about earlier, is like how we kind of foresee it growing. But with that growth, like our roles are going to continue to change. So like, we already, like Corey's going to have her next role. We already are building that as we speak.
Yeah.
And like, I'm certainly moving. I've already moved a lot into like CEO. So I guess I'll talk about my role.
That's probably the last official one.
It is. Yes.
Yeah.
So like CEO, in my opinion, so I'm founder / CEO. So it's a little different than like someone who you hire in to be the CEO, because you're always going to have like the founder, and then the founder may or may not go on to become the CEO as you grow, right? So like I am both. I started GeneSIS. I founded it. I have the vision for it. Like no one knows. It's all in my head, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Like I am the only one who truly knows like kind of GeneSIS, you know, like you've been around long enough to know and to like be like, yeah, that makes sense that you're doing that because that fits everything that we've ever done, you know. But I think for me, my role is very much like have the vision, have the ideas, make growth moves, like be like, oh, like, yes, let's open a clinic there, Corey. Great idea. Like, you know, like Corey was saying, like, I have been hands off on this 6th clinic that's opening, but I like okayed it, I guess.
In the know the whole time.
Yeah. And so it's like, technically, I could have been like, nope, I don't want to go there. Didn't do that because it's a great idea. Love it.
You also can't turn down a new clinic.
Can't turn down a new clinic. Yes. I'm sorry. But yeah, and so very much my role is vision, keeping my why of be better at pelvic floor therapy, honestly, be the best, and change like how the culture of pelvic health clinics can be. So like those are kind of my whys and my vision. Support the staff from a very big picture role. Like I'm not in the trenches with the staff being like, let me help you like with this leadership problem you're having. Like we have this hierarchy, but like I have set up this hierarchy to support that person basically. Yeah. And then like, you know, I have the big picture. I start to make things to implement these things. And then it's like, the boots on the ground come in and make it happen, essentially.
And you still put out like the big fires. Yeah. Like that's one of the things we were also talking about earlier was like the director will kind of keep their leadership informed of like, hey, here's the problems that arose that I handled, because they're obviously problem solving and doing things. And then they're also going to escalate like, hey, I came up to the problem that I don't know what to do, don't have the tools to solve, need some advice about, whatever. Yeah. And there are always going to be certain problems that are going to get all the way up to the top. Absolutely. And that's totally fine.
And that's the point of them filtering out too. Yeah. Is like, I have the capacity for those bigger things.
Yes. Without being drugged down.
Yes. Without being like, why am I getting this complaint about the TheraBand being out? Like,
I don't have time for this.
Yeah, literally. So yeah. It sounds weird whenever I talk about my role because it sounds like I don't do anything but just sit here and be like, where can we go?
Whereas, no, it's very busy every day.
Every day is so busy.
Yeah.
But it's busy with things I want it to be busy with for the most part. For the most part.
And then room for big, giant problems.
Yeah. And it like leaves room for us to do like fun projects that we want to do.
Yes.
Like, because I'm barely seeing patients now. Like I have a few little stragglers and I'll probably always have a few, which is fine. But like I have capacity, and you do too, because you see less patients, but like to embark on these projects of random like things that we haven't announced yet.
Yeah. Not bigger opportunities, but like expansion beyond just clinical treatment, brick and mortar. Yeah. Which again, to all circle back to the culture, which is what this episode is really about, also supports having some financial cushion so that for things like maternity leave, sick leave, like, you know, snow days, those sorts of things, we don't have to be so scared of like financial downturn because there's cushion and there because of the forward thinking and like the big brain ideas, 100%. Which is huge.
100%.
So it makes a big difference.
Wow. All the things. And in typical GeneSIS fashion, stay tuned for like Corey's up and coming role in GeneSIS. You already see her here in Pelvic Powerhouse. She's here. So it's just we're always just doing things that are new and
it's still growing.
Yeah, it's gonna be great. So wow. GeneSIS, man.
GeneSIS, it grows and grows. That's part of the culture too, is everyone's so excited
about growing
and just grow.
Yeah, we always be growing.
Oh, stay growing. Always be growing.
Always be growing. Yeah.
Is there any last minute culture stuff you want to add?
Man, I just feel like we tip of the iceberg to that. Like I feel like we could just keep going on and on, but I think that's a good start for now. Like I feel like I would like to on other episodes talk about like attracting your team and like get more into like the fun parts of our culture. Like what are our quarterly events? What are our birthday dinners?
The
like
best.
what are our tiered goals? And like, we didn't even say this. We're freaking taking everyone and their husband to Mexico
I know. I
this
was like,
year.
is that a secret? Like,
no, it's
that's
not
our
a
fourth
secret.
quarter event.
Woo!
Or is it third quarter?
Third quarter.
It's our third quarter event.
Third quarter event. But yeah, like, but I'll leave it with this.
Mm-hmm.
So the culture of GeneSIS is not our fun parties. It's not our trip to Mexico. It's not what you see on Instagram of us like partying with margaritas and stuff. Like, that stuff is a product of our culture of GeneSIS. It's a product of our values, and it's a product of our mission, and it's a product of the team. It's a product of the culture. I mean, it just is.
Yeah.
So that's what I'll leave it with, is like, those things are a product of the culture that you like build within your team.
Well, and having a team that everyone wants to hang out with their coworkers, which is a huge blessing, and you don't find that many places nowadays.
Yeah, that's why you got to be very picky of who you hire.
So I love it.
Shameless plug for my course.
I know.
It's called Work Culture, Building Your Dream Team. And it's literally where I walk you through attracting your ideal employee, building the team, like interviews, like things to ask, how to interpret the interview process, like how to know who to say yes to, who to say no to. We'll go into like a lot of what we talked about. We will go into like what GeneSIS does for culture,
nitty gritty,
how we take care of our like people from like a life perspective, like what we pay them and how we pay, and like, because it's a different method. It's you know, it's this whole thing which I'm going to go into, and like it's how we do maternity leaves, and it's how we end up with all this fun that you see on Instagram, essentially, and like how not just how GeneSIS does and did it, but very applicable ways for how you can build your team in a way that is your culture. Like, it's not going to be do it just like me. It's giving you the tools to be like, okay, let's look inwardly. What are my values in my business? How do I attract people who have those values? And then how do I build a team with this?
Yeah, a profitable, marketable, successful business team.
Yeah. And I always say, like, if you want a course that's going to be stuffy business, this is not it. And if you want a course that's not going to challenge you to lead with the servant heart and to put the people first, this is also not the course for you. But if you're ready for something different and like to actually challenge yourself and your way of thinking, and to like turn society on its head and culture on its head for like what we are taught to get to the top, like, this is what you want.
I think it's going to be great.
It is.
I don't know any of the details, but I just trust that it's going to be good.
It's literally so amazing. And like, here we are in April. It's not launched yet, but it's launching this summer. So
it's going to be so good.
Summer 2023, baby. So if it's past that, it should be out. So go buy it.
If you're in the future, the course turned out great.
Yes. So great. So great.
All right.
Yay.
Yay. Thankful for this culture, Becky.
Same.
Well, we will catch up with you guys next time.
Yes, next time. Talking about growth, baby.
Growth, because why not?
Growth, because why not?
It's going to be fun.
Yay. Boom. Shaka.